There are nearly 350 men and 10 women who have been condemned to die in Texas. One of them is 31-year-old Robert Will, who at the age of 22 took part in a crime that resulted in the death of a police officer. When asked to write something for the book on Texas death row, he chose to write not about himself, but about a fellow inmate who took his own life. My friend was a genuinely good person who just made some bad choices in life, he wrote. He says many inmates on death row struggle with guilt over the people they killed, as well as the anxiety of knowing they are condemned to die.
There's more, I guess, stress on a person's psyche because you're living under a sentence of death. And that could weigh heavily on a person's mind. I mean, I've literally seen guys completely go insane.
In addition to writing, the new book contains artwork done by death row inmates, many of whom Will regards as true artists.
There's so much talent back here, and I know this might sound outrageous, but if someone reads that book, perhaps it won't sound so outrageous. You have individuals back here who, I mean, you have artists that are brilliant, absolutely brilliant artists.
The idea for the book on death row originated with Sam Houston State University English professor Paul Ruffin, who teaches a class in which students develop a book from inception to printing. He says this book gives a voice to people whom society has cast off.
What we wanted to do was to give them an outlet for their work, for their expressions. We wanted to know what it was like day to day living on death row.
Nearly 50 male inmates sent in writings and artwork, but none of the condemned women responded, much to Ruffin's disappointment. Most male inmates treated the project with suspicion as well. A photo of a torn-up request for submissions is featured in the book. One of the 7 student editors, Paula Califf, says those who did contribute liked the idea.
One of the inmates said, thank you for the opportunity to show that we're not monsters, we're human beings.
She says before working on this book, she never thought much about the death penalty, but she was deeply touched by reading the stories of men who often grew up in broken homes and who, as one inmate says, became lost souls as children.
I have to say that I've probably completely changed my feelings about the death penalty. I probably, if I had to come down for or against it at this point, I would be against it.
But fellow editor James Ridgway has mixed feelings about that issue and the prisoners themselves.
The first reaction is to be sympathetic, like, oh wow, these are really sad stories and I feel bad. And then the second thing that happens is you look up the crime and you're horrified.
Although the book does not describe the crimes committed by the inmate contributors, the information is provided online by the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Ridgway says working on the book challenged him both intellectually and emotionally.
You're reading these things and this kind of dark mood sets over you. And again, whether you're for or against it, I'm not the death penalty. That's not my point. It's that sifting through enough of that sort of puts that mood on you.
There's so much interest in the book that Professor Ruffin says his new class is already at work on a follow-up book that will include creative writing by inmates. He says one goal of this project has already been accomplished in that the condemned men are no longer just names and numbers.
They have become something like people we know now, whereas before they were obscure.
Copies of the Texas Death Row book were sent to the inmate contributors. Upon this chessboard of nights and days, Voices from Texas Death Row is available in bookstores and can be purchased online. Greg Flakus, VOA News, Huntsville, Texas.